Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of King of the Hill, I want to look at the Star-Spawn of Cthulhu. If you've followed this channel for a while, you know that I am not a fan of the minions of Cthulhu, and the Star-Spawn is a large part of that. This is going to be another one of those videos where many will disagree with me, and that's okay. There are two main topics I want to cover with respect to its ability, which is a talent that lets you place a madness card from your hand into another player's hand. This lets you give madness while simultaneously giving it away, as opposed to simply having them draw a madness card. The first issue I have is that the density of madness cards compared to how often this ability activates. It's disappointing on two levels. To give away madness, you need to have madness. The minions of Cthulhu have 5 cards that let you draw a madness card. The seal is broken, and their 2 double features, Whispers in Darkness and Corruption. The Cthulhu's Chosen could potentially add more, and it's actually possible for each Cthulhu's Chosen to draw more than one in the same scoring phase if multiple bases are scoring, but this is hard to achieve. The minions of Cthulhu have very little card draw, ironic card draw in fact. The way that they draw cards is by using Madness Unleashed, an action I'm not a fan of except in specific circumstances, which requires jettisoning the very madness cards you'd be giving away. The best card draw they have might actually be using madness cards, which again depletes your supply. So you may not get too many of these cards that give madness, which limits the effectiveness of the Star-Spawn. You might get more value by using the servitors to recur the actions that do give madness, like the seal is broken, but this feels like the servitors are doing the heavy lifting rather than the Star-Spawn. The other disappointing aspect of the madness ratio is that, with Altar to Cthulhu, you will often have extra actions to work with which can be used to return the madness cards. If you are prioritizing helping yourself, you will want to get rid of your madness as quickly as possible, effectively having your supply of madness to give to other players. When I did my video on the Cthulhu Titan, I was disappointed that its talent seems to double down on the Star-Spawn, and while that's disappointing, it really is necessary. The minions of Cthulhu are in the strange, unenviable position of not having enough madness cards to give away, or not being able to give them away fast enough if they have a lot. This makes the Star-Spawn really dependent on either its partner or its opponent. It does act as a great counter to Elder Things, but that's one faction you are countering. For partners, very few factions actually draw madness cards, so the minions of Cthulhu are forced to either be a headlining faction, which they are not, or a support faction, which comes primarily from their actions in recursion. Giving away madness with the Star-Spawn just seems like corrective action to compensate for everything else the faction does, as it stands completely apart from the rest of the faction. The second issue is that this minion does not scale in multiplayer games. At this point in my life, I am firmly convinced that Smash Up is a 2-player game that also works with 3 balanced players, and on rare occasions with 4. But 4 can be chaos and can dilute the true winner because players don't interact with each other equally. And this ability is a clear example of that. There are 2 outcomes of this ability in a multiplayer game. Either there are not enough madness cards to make a meaningful dent against your opponent, or you will pick one person and penalize them. This is because you affect 1 player per turn, if you're lucky, and who knows how many turns this minion will remain in play. If you alternate, then you've given each player 1 madness card, which does nothing. They also have plenty of time to get rid of it, negating your negation. If they have an extra action, they will return it. Otherwise, there really isn't any incentive to do anything about it. To actually do anything, you need to keep targeting the same person, because once they go back down to 1 card, will you really start attacking another player from scratch, which will do nothing, when you can immediately force someone's hand? This ability practically begs you to target 1 and only 1 person if you are the sole source of madness cards, and that's a problem. Because who gets to be the victim? The player in the lead? If you get the Star-Spawn early enough, leads are transient. The absolute worst thing that can happen is you play with a group that has a screw Jim factor. This is a known phenomenon in my gaming group where the simple fact of being me means that I am always in the lead in all board games regardless of score or position or the fact that I'm on the brink of death. So if you have a chance to screw someone, screw Jim. It elevates the take that factor of the game that I don't think is good for Smash Up, and while this ability may work in a head-to-head match, it's not effective in multiplayer, and that ineffectiveness creates problems that go beyond the faction itself. It's this very reason that I banned the Minions of Cthulhu in tournament formats, because of their nature to affect a single player that goes beyond destruction effects. In casual games, players may not care about positioning other than a win, but in tournament formats, where second place can either advance you or score points, every point matters, and the ability to sway the outcome in a way that doesn't affect you is unfair. So clearly I don't like the Star-Spawn because of its paradoxical nature. It's either too weak to do anything, or completely necessary to focus on one person, but under some circumstances, it can be crippling to one person. But there is one very interesting question I've been pondering lately. Which is the better Titan pairing for the Star-Spawn, Cthulhu or the Great Wolf Spirit? With Cthulhu, you get to maximize drawing of madness cards because they give power counters. Cthulhu also becomes the guaranteed source of madness that the Star-Spawn desperately needs. However, this means that the Titan does nothing for any partner faction. Assuming you had enough madness cards, the Great Wolf Spirit can double the output of the Star-Spawn, allowing you to overwhelm a player faster. The power boosts of the Great Wolf Spirit mitigate the power counters of Cthulhu, whose power level should be higher, but you also get the extra card draw from Moontouched and the extra actions of Leader of the Pack. The Minions of Cthulhu need the card draw desperately, but they aren't exactly hurting for actions, so I have to give Cthulhu the win as much as it hurts. But it's worth noting, if the Titan is needed for a faction, and the Titan is a carbon copy of the King Minion, and only the King Minion, then that minion had problems all along. For a faction that has 8 minions, 4 of which blow themselves up, having a disappointing King Minion is extremely hard to swallow. Whether the Minions of Cthulhu have enough madness, sans Titan, to make the Star-Spawn worthwhile is debatable, but the multiplayer impact is undeniable. However, I'm not the biggest fan of multiplayer Smash-Up in general, particularly at 4 players, and maybe your group doesn't suffer from the Screw Jim phenomenon, so I wouldn't blame you if your feelings are different. What do you think of the Star-Spawn of Cthulhu? Let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.